Welcome to New at NAMT, the next wave of musical theater writers, a series dedicated to spotlighting the emerging voices in musical theater. Every interview provides a unique glimpse into the creative minds behind the next big musicals. So whether you're a producer, theater lover, or even simply curious about the future of musical theater, New at NAMT offers a front row seat to a new generation of writers. It's time to lower the lights, raise the curtain, and LX1, go on New at NAMT. I am your host, Jean-Paul Yovanov from Musical Theater Radio, and joining me each week is a rotating cast of NAMT Festival consultants as our co-hosts. As part of the NAMT Festival, each musical is matched with consultants who are artistic leaders from the NAMT member organizations, who have also championed the show through the festival selection process or want to champion the show moving forward. The consultants work with their writing teams through all creative stages of the presentation and advocate for the artists and the show at the festival. Today we're going under the sea with Finn, a bold and heartwarming new musical created by the award-winning trio Chris NEE, Chris Dimond, and Michael Kooman. Before we get into today's interview, let's welcome this week's co-host, Braley Dagenhart. Hello, Braley. Welcome to New at NAMT.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Before we get to talking to our guests, we got to get to know you a little bit better. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Braley Dagenhart. I am the director of marketing at Atlantic Theater Company, the off-Broadway theater and acting school in New York City. I have been a consultant on NAMT's New Play Festival for the past 2 seasons, and I've also been a member of the membership committee with NAMT for about 4 years now. So I'm a big NAMT fan all around.
Fantastic. All right. Now that we've met our co-hosts, let's get into the interview. Finn is about a young shark named Finn, who doesn't fit in with his dull gray pack. When he's introduced to the colorful world of fish, Finn realizes that he may be a fish at heart. Chris, Michael, and Chris, welcome to New at NAMT.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, I'm Chris NEE, and I'm co-book and lyricist for Finn, and have spent a lot of my life writing for the children of this country in television and film.
Great. Now that we've met Chris, let's meet the other Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Dimond. I'm the other co-book, co-lyricist writer for Finn, and really thrilled to be here with you today.
And Michael, yourself.
I am Michael, the first non-Chris of this writing team, and I wrote the music for Finn the Musical.
Great. Can you share how this collaboration began? Your origin story actually ties into NAMT, right? Tell us about how the festival helped bring you together.
It does. I was working in TV at Disney and had created a show called Doc McStuffins, and I was moving on to my second series, Vampirina. And I like to do something a little different than some of the other show creators. I like to find a composing lyrics team who will take on an entire series. So it's like a big marriage for me. And we were looking for really some new blood, and the Disney executives went to NAMT to see the festival. And the guys were, one of their shows was in the festival that year, and they came back, the executives, and said to me, there's one team who is just head and shoulders above the rest, and we have to give them a try. We ended up doing a blind audition, which you're not seeing who's writing the songs, because I know a lot of the teams who are already working in the space, and these two wrote a song that was so clear to me that this is who I wanted to work with. And we ended up using that song just directly in the first episode without changing anything. And then, we've gone on to do, I don't know, 200 and plus songs for different series. We've worked on multiple series over 7 years. And someone else can jump in and talk about how we ended up doing an actual show together.
Well, we were working together on a show for Netflix that got canceled, and we suddenly had a lot of time on our hands that we weren't expecting. And we had been throwing an idea around for a while of how to write a show that might have a young boy character who is enjoys sparkly things. We wanted to figure out a way to talk about the strength in vulnerability for young kids, especially boys. And we had been throwing around what that setting would be, what the story would be, and we came across this. We after throwing out a couple of ideas, we thought that the world of sharks and fish sort of created a nice delineation of what two groups might easily represent. One group is very stoic and gray and very like all about asserting muscular power, and the other one could be a bit more feminine, could be a bit more expressive. And once we got on that idea, we really just hit the ground running. We pitched it to the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center commissioned it from us. We got a production pretty quickly, and now we're sort of here talking to you.
And what's it like been working together across both television and theater?
I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. The experience on Vampirina for Michael and me was our first experience in television at all. And Chris obviously had been working in TV for a long time, had won a lot of awards, was really acclaimed in the space. So for us, that was a brand new experience. And getting to collaborate with her was just the greatest thing in the world, the greatest opportunity and the greatest learning experience. We learned so much. We became such better writers by going through the process of writing for an animated television show. And then, to pivot into theater and to write a musical together. I mean, Chris, though most of her accolades have been to this point in the world of television, she's a theater kid at heart, and really, really grew up in the world of theater, and always throughout our TV process talked about wanting to write a musical. So when this opportunity came about, it was suddenly, though both theater and TV are incredibly collaborative forms, suddenly we were working together in a brand new way. Our collaboration was obviously different in this way, and it really has just been unbelievably positive all the way through. Getting to not only to sort of crack this story, but to bring it to life and to see the way that it affects audiences, both young audiences and older audiences, adults too, has been one of the best professional experiences. At least I don't want to speak for these guys here, but one of the real highlights of my career.
Oh, I would 100% agree with that. And the only other thing I would say, like what TV does for you is teaches you to not be precious and to write quickly. And you get, if you have to cut something, you have the episode next week that you can put it into. Like you have so many shots at the target, and that's kind of an incredible thing. And it teaches you a certain set of chops. And then, going into the theater, it's the meditation of how long you're working on one piece of something. And I think having both sides of that, and having experienced that with these guys has been such a joy. And I would also say, like, yes, one incredible collaboration. And it's hard to sometimes change your roles and how you are collaborators with each other. And that, we were just really intentional about it, that we were going into a different space and we were doing it, we had different roles and we were going to do it in a different way. And I'm supremely grateful for these two talents, but also human beings. They are a joy to work with.
That's so special. What a great collaboration. I know that you all have said that Finn is the musical that you wish that you'd seen as kids. What inspired you to tell this story, and what themes do you hope will resonate with the young audiences and also with their grown-ups?
I grew up a queer kid in the 70s, 80s. I came out in the late 80s. I look at this show and I can't actually imagine what it would have been like growing up and going to the theater, which was a space that I loved and cherished, and seeing something that was so directly talking to all of the ways that I felt inside. I think the horrifying thing is how far backwards we have gone right now, and that this show is again so incredibly relevant, and that the kids that it's speaking to are, I have no doubt, feeling very scared in the way that I did in the late 80s, early 90s. And so it feels like a great privilege to be able to give them something that I hope is helpful in that way. And then I would also say it's for everyone. This is for anyone who feels different and in any kind of way. And while there's queer coding, I would suppose, like, it really is for all audiences and all people who have something they want to pursue that some pressure makes them think maybe they can't.
Tell us a little bit more about the process of writing for young audiences. How does it feel different from creating theater for a broader audiences?
Well, I think the biggest difference is just imagining the human that's in the seat watching the show. For my opinion, in the way that like I talk to my 4-year-old nephew and explain him things differently than I would explain it to a 24-year-old, or even sometimes explain it differently to an older person. I don't think I write. I don't think. I think successful writing for young people isn't necessarily writing completely differently or writing down. It's just writing with the audience in mind. Like I know for this show I wrote every single note with my nephew Simon in mind, because as we said before, this was a show that we hoped we wish we had when we were younger. And I was trying to think about the feelings that it felt like to feel quite different when I was younger, and how hard it is to just articulate it to yourself internally, not to mention how hard it is to articulate it to other people, much less your family, the people that are really important to you. And so throughout this process, I was just trying to write what I thought my little nephew would enjoy, but also, as Chris Nee was saying earlier, something that we all as adults could really enjoy too. I think we're trying, just, our collaboration started at Disney. I think what Disney does when they're really hitting the mark is writing it at two levels, something for the adults to really enjoy and sink their teeth into, but also something that children find fun and something that makes kids want to dance and laugh. And that's sort of our goal, and that's what we were trying to do with this piece.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, I think one of the dangers in writing for young audiences is overthinking what that difference can be. And I think one of the things we set out to do from the very beginning on any project that we're creating for young audiences is to not write down to them, is to not think of it terribly differently than what we write for adults. It's just, the audience has a little bit of a different viewpoint on the world, which you take into account. But really, we've always firmly believed that theater and entertainment for young audiences is just as important, if not more important, than entertainment aimed at adults. There's a great quote I've heard, someone who says you shouldn't think about theater for young audiences as you should think more of it as theater for future audiences. For a lot of kids, coming to see Finn or any piece that's done for young audiences, it's their first experience in the theater, and that feels like a real privilege and a responsibility to give them something that's really, really high quality, while simultaneously, like the great Disney movies or the Pixar films, making sure that the parents who come along with them have something there too. I think we really strive to make sure that our work is not just theater for young audiences, but theater for all audiences, theater for family audiences.
And you had also mentioned that Finn had a production at the Kennedy Center, but we know that unfortunately the tour that was scheduled after that production was canceled under the Trump administration's takeover of the Kennedy Center. When that happened, Finn went viral and sparked a major community response. How did that moment feel for you? And what did that also reveal about the role of theater and this production specifically as resistance?
Look, it was an intense moment for us. We had had an incredible run at the Kennedy Center, and our collaboration with the people who work at the Kennedy Center was a fantastic 2 years of building this show up to bring it onto the stage. We talk about the financial success of the show because that was part of the narrative of what they put forward when they canceled the tour. But the show had recouped its money, which we all know is unusual, very early in the run. We were nominated for a Helen Hayes Award, not in the youth category, but for Best New Musical. And we were told during that time that we had been picked to be the Kennedy Center's touring show out of that particular season. And they felt so bullish about it that they were going to do 2 years of touring, which was very unusual for them. We had had a couple of conversations just in the weeks before. Everything was set and right. And then there was the Friday night that Trump put out the tweet saying that he was taking over the Kennedy Center. We all kind of wondered, what's that going to mean for us? By that Tuesday, we had gotten, a text saying, like, you have to hop on a call. And on that call, we were told that they were canceling the tour for financial reasons, which had never been an issue before. And 45 minutes later, Trump, went into the board meeting. The board meeting happened, and he became the head of the Kennedy Center. So you can, do your own sniff test on what that all meant. But, as devastated as we were, we felt really strongly that we knew we were the very first thing to get canceled. And as long as we claimed that and were willing to put ourselves out there, and, who wants to be in the spotlight when it comes to, the Trump administration, but that we could have our show also stand for what it is to be in the resistance and to speak and say out loud and perform and show up in spaces. All of the things that they are trying to silence, we need to amplify. And I'll let Chris talk about what happened at Town Hall, but to me, that was the Broadway, the theater community showing up and saying, oh yeah, we're going to amplify. We are not going to let this go silently into the night.
Yeah, it was really, as heartbroken as we were equally, if not more so, overwhelmed and inspired by the response that it got. It felt like we were sitting in this moment in early February following the election where everyone was overwhelmed. Everyone was feeling just besieged by negativity and didn't know what to do, didn't have a venue or a means of fighting back or making their voices heard. And it felt like we were thrust into this particular moment where all of a sudden this became a way for people's voices to be heard and for people to feel like they were actively resisting. And the amount of support and love that we got from the theater community was truly one of the most kind of restore your faith in humanity moments that we'd ever experienced. I mean, people reached out to us from all around the world. All sorts of people were just, knocking on our doors saying, what can we do? How can we help? What can we do to make sure that this show isn't silenced and that the message of this show is heard? And ultimately, what that ended up resulting in is that Seth Rudetsky and James Wesley, through their organization Stars in the House, produced a concert version of the show in New York City at the Town Hall with an all-star cast of Broadway A-listers, Andrew Rannells and Bonnie Milligan and Nikki James and Jesse Mueller and Kelly O'Hara, and just, on and on, this list of people who were willing to give their time and their talent. We had Chris Gattelli directing it. It was just one of the most stunning evenings that I've ever experienced, to think that all of these incredibly talented people were willing to stand up and to support us and to support the message of the show. Really, I think to your question about what does it say about the role of theater as an act of resistance, I think it's kind of a weirdly quintessential example of how theater in particular and the arts in general can be a form of resistance and can be a way to stand up and say we're not gonna be silenced.
Absolutely, that resistance of censorship in the art world. And you've touched on this a bit, but is there anything you want to add, any of you, about why this story feels even more important to tell right now, especially in the face of that censorship?
Well, getting the tour canceled was really frustrating, but I think the most frustrating thing for me was that all of these young people across the country weren't gonna experience this story. We were set to go to some places that I think the story was really going to be important. It's as we mentioned before, it's a story about not fitting in, which I think most people at some point in their lives can really feel akin to. And specifically, this is a piece that is about feeling like, maybe you're a little bit sparkly in a world that's very gray. And I think this piece is a really subtle way to talk about the issue in a way that is fun for kids, but also doesn't villainize anyone. There is everyone. What I'm really proud of with this piece is that everyone comes out better at the end, and there is not a villain. It is really just about learning how to articulate and communicate who you are and having the strength to stand up for who you are, even when you're in the face of somebody who is trying to silence you. So both metaphorically in the conversation as this piece has lived in the world, it's important, but also I think specifically in the theme of the show, I think we should teach kids to stand up for what's right, and that's why I think this show is important.
I'd love to explore the sound of the show. Can you tell us a little bit about the music of Finn?
Totally. So basically, whenever I like get into a show these days, or when I'm thinking about writing a show, I come up with a playlist on Spotify that I try to use as sort of like, okay, this is the world, this is the sort of roadmap of the world. And actually, the first suggestion that and basically I bring it to my collaborators and I'm like, what do you think of this? I had two ideas. And the first one, I don't know if you guys remember, you guys kind of nixed it, but I had this concept of like kind of Owl City, if you remember that band. It was very like sort of like
Mhm.
electronic before electronic really took over pop music. And I was like, that could be kind of cute because we're underwater and doing that. And both of my collaborators were like, no, we don't like this. And the other idea I had was sort of a more, again, things end up differently, but this where we were starting from was a little bit more pop rock in the 90s because I felt like that could be, I don't even remember why I started there, but as far as the sound is where it's ended up, I unintentionally wrote the Disney animated film of my dreams, essentially. It's very cinematic, it's very orchestral. There's a lot of variety within the show, but I would say it's most like a Disney kind of animated film from the 90s, sort of that kind of sound. But we really wanted to, put a lot of diversity in there because the show also deals with a lot of diversity. So we have a little bit more of a calypso themed number for Cecil. We have, we just have a lot of different things. But that's how I would describe it. I don't know, maybe Chris Nee or Chris Diamond can sort of clarify a little bit more.
I think you really summed it up well. But one of my favorite things that I think the music specifically that Michael has really managed to do is to capture both of the worlds of the fish and the sharks, which are contrasting worlds and one of the main themes of the show, while still making it feel as though it's a cohesive score, that it all feels like it's part of a whole. And another thing just to mention is that we worked with an absolutely brilliant orchestrator named August Eriksmoen on this piece, who we love dearly and did absolutely fantastic work in the orchestrations and building the tracks for the original Kennedy Center production, which we just could not be more over the moon about. They sound really, really incredible. And it just is one of those things that really brings the show to life in a way that nothing else can, right? That's the magic of musical theater.
Agreed. I can't wait for audiences to hear it. Speaking of which, we've spoken a little bit about the history of the show and the inception. Let's talk about the future. What are you hoping is next for Finn, and what kind of collaborators or partners are you looking for in the future?
I mean, I think for Finn, we are just really excited to get it out, really sort of seeding it around the country in multiple different formats. I think we'll be working on the version that will be for junior high schools and for kids to be performing. We think there's the theater for a young audience version. We know that it plays really well with adults. So, I think our sweet spot both for Finn, but also in moving forward is, I think we're really good at handling humor right next to drama and emotion. I think we write really, really well for family audiences, and partially because of our experience in TV and certainly my background, we're really good with big honkin' IP. Like, we are not afraid to be in big conversations with something that is iconic, beloved, and dealing with big stakeholders is kind of something that I've been doing certainly for the last 30 years. So yeah, we're putting a little shout out. We of course have projects that we are pursuing, but we think if you have an IP piece that you are looking to make into all family, all audience musical, I can't imagine why you wouldn't come talk to us. So there you go.
Yeah, one of the awesome things about the NAMT festival is that it's not just about the piece that you have in it. You know, it's about the collaboration much more broadly, and beyond that, it's about the next three shows that we're going to write. So that's one of the things we're really excited about being able to meet and connect with people, and to, you know, not only get Finn out into the world, but to launch the next couple of musicals that we're going to write.
Before we wrap up, where can people learn more about you and Finn ahead of the festival? You know, websites, socials, anything you'd like to share.
I'm going to let Chris, who is younger than I am, talk about socials. That's what I'm going to do, except you can find me specifically at laughingwildprod.com. But let's tell you how to find Finn, which is far more important.
Younger is quite a relative word to use in that sentence, Chris. But yeah, you can Michael and I have our website at KoomanDimond.com, no A and Diamond, KOOMANDIMOND.com. But if you're looking specifically for Finn, you can follow us on Instagram at Finn Musical, FINN, two N's, musical, and we'll keep everyone updated and posted on what's going on with the show there.
I want to give a huge thanks to the writers Chris NEE, Chris Dimond, and Michael Kooman for talking to us today about Finn.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure to be here.
And of course, we have to thank our lovely co-host, Braley Dagenhart, for joining us today as well.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait for everybody to see Finn at the NAMT Festival this year.
Fantastic. And tune in next time for more incredible voices from this year's NAMT Festival of New Musicals. Once again, I am your host, Jean-Paul Jovanoff, and on behalf of NAMT and MTR, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in the theater.